What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors sits down for what should be a routine late-night interview, only to discover the host has a hidden agenda that turns the entire conversation into a battlefield? Tonight we're diving deep into the explosive confrontation between Jude Law and Jimmy Kimmel that left everyone in the studio speechless and ended with security being called to escort one of Britain's finest actors off the set. The tension was palpable from the moment Jude Law walked onto the Jimmy Kimmel live stage. What the audience didn't know was that behind the scenes, Kimmel had spent the entire day crafting what he thought would be comedy gold, a series of personal attacks disguised as jokes that would catch the unsuspecting actor completely off guard. As Law settled into the guest chair, flashing his trademark charming smile to the cheering crowd, Kimmel wore a smirk that suggested he knew something the rest of us didn't. "Jude Law, everybody," Kimmel announced with false enthusiasm, his voice carrying an edge that regular viewers might have dismissed as typical late-night banter. "You know, I have to say, it's really brave of you to come on the show tonight, especially after some of the things that have been floating around Hollywood lately." Law's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, his media-trained smile remaining intact, but his eyes sharpening with curiosity and perhaps a hint of concern. "I'm sorry, Jimmy. What things are you referring to exactly?" Kimmel leaned back in his chair, clearly savoring the moment like a predator who had just cornered its prey. "Oh, come on, Jude. Don't play coy with me. We both know about the little situation with your co-star on the latest film. The whispers, the rumors, the alleged behind-the-scenes drama that had everyone on set walking on eggshells." The studio audience, initially buzzing with excitement, began to sense something was off. This wasn't the typical, light-hearted celebrity interview they had come to expect. Law's posture straightened, his hands clasping together in what body language experts would later describe as a defensive gesture. "Jimmy, I think there might be some confusion here," Law replied, his British accent becoming more pronounced as it often did when he was under stress. "I'm not sure what rumors you're referring to, but I can assure you that my working relationships with all my colleagues have been nothing but professional and respectful." Kimmel's grin widened, and he pulled out a stack of papers from beneath, his desk with theatrical flair. "Really? Because I have some very interesting reports here that suggest otherwise. Sources close to the production tell me you had quite the meltdown during filming, screaming at crew members, making unreasonable demands, generally behaving like a stereotypical Hollywood prima donna." The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Law's face flushed slightly, not with embarrassment but with the kind of controlled anger that comes from years of dealing with tabloid nonsense and media manipulation. The audience was now completely silent, sensing they were witnessing something far more serious than a comedy bit. "Those allegations are completely false," Law said, his voice steady but carrying an unmistakable warning. "And I find it quite unprofessional that you would ambush a guest with unsubstantiated gossip without giving them the opportunity to address these claims beforehand." Kimmel seemed to feed off the tension, his entertainment industry instincts, telling him this was great television regardless of the human cost. "Ambush? Come on, Jude. This is late-night television. We're all just having fun here. Can't you take a joke?" "A joke?" Law's composure began to crack slightly. "Jimmy, you just accused me of professional misconduct based on anonymous sources and called me a prima donna on national television. That's not a joke. That's character assassination disguised as entertainment." The host doubled down, clearly committed to his course of action, despite the obvious discomfort of everyone around him. "Look, I get it. You're upset because someone finally called you out on your behavior. But this is America, buddy. We don't bow down to British royalty here, even the Hollywood kind." Law's eyes flashed with genuine anger now. "British royalty? What exactly are you implying, Jimmy? That because I'm English, I somehow think I'm better than everyone else? That's not just wrong, it's borderline xenophobic." "Xenophobic?" Kimmel laughed, but it was a harsh, mocking sound that made several audience members visibly uncomfortable. "Oh, please, you can't hide behind the race card when someone calls out your diva behavior. Next you'll be telling me it's discrimination. That I won't kiss your ring and treat you like some untouchable celebrity god." The conversation was spiraling into territory that no one in the studio had anticipated. Law leaned forward in his chair, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried more weight than if he had been shouting. "Jimmy, I came on your show as a professional courtesy, to promote my work and have what I assumed would be a respectful conversation. Instead, you've chosen to attack my character, my professionalism, and now my nationality. I have to ask, what exactly is your endgame here?" Kimmel's mask was beginning to slip, revealing something uglier underneath the late-night host persona. "My endgame? How about some honesty for once? How about acknowledging that you Hollywood types think you can waltz into any situation and expect everyone to kiss your feet? You want respect? Earn it." "Earn it?" Law's voice rose slightly, his famous composure finally beginning to fracture under the sustained assault. "I've been working in this industry for over 2 decades, Jimmy. I've earned my reputation through my work, not through tearing other people down on television for cheap laughs." The tension in the studio had reached a breaking point, but Kimmel wasn't finished. He shuffled through his papers again, clearly relishing the discomfort he was causing, not just to his guest, but to everyone watching. The camera operators exchanged worried glances, and several audience members had stopped clapping entirely, sensing they were witnessing something that had crossed the line from entertainment into cruelty. "You know what, Jude?" Kimmel continued, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Maybe the problem isn't that you're British. Maybe the problem is that you've been living in this Hollywood bubble for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to be challenged by someone who isn't on your payroll." Law's jaw tightened visibly. "Challenged? Is that what you call this? Jimmy, there's a difference between challenging someone and deliberately trying to humiliate them. What you're doing right now isn't journalism. It isn't comedy. It's just mean-spirited bullying with a studio audience." "Bullying?" Kimmel's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Oh, that's rich coming from someone who allegedly made a script supervisor. Cry because she dared to question one of your line readings. But I guess when you're Jude Law, the rules don't apply to you, right?" The audience gasped audibly at this latest accusation. Law's face went pale, not with guilt, but with the kind of shock that comes from hearing a complete fabrication presented as fact. He stood up slightly in his chair, his hands gripping the armrests. "That never happened," Law said, his voice cutting through the studio like a blade. "Jimmy, I don't know where you're getting this information, but it's completely false. I have never in my entire career made anyone cry on set. I pride myself on creating a collaborative, respectful working environment." Kimmel waved dismissively. Sure, I'm sure that's what your publicist told you to say. But we both know the truth, don't we? The truth is that you've gotten so comfortable being treated like royalty that you can't handle it when someone treats you like a regular person." "A regular person?" Law's composure was hanging by a thread now. "Jimmy, regular people don't ambush their guests with lies and personal attacks. Regular people show basic human decency. What you're doing right now, this isn't how regular people behave. This is how cowards behave." The word cowards hit Kimmel like a physical blow. His fake smile faltered for just a moment, revealing a flash of genuine anger underneath. "Coward? Did you just call me a coward on my own show?" "If the shoe fits," Law replied, his British reserve finally giving way to righteous indignation. "You've spent the last 10 minutes making accusations you can't substantiate, attacking my character based on gossip and hearsay. And when I defend myself, you mock me for it. What would you call that behavior, Jimmy?" Kimmel's mask was slipping further now, his carefully constructed television persona cracking under the pressure of Law's direct challenge. "I'd call it holding celebrities accountable for their actions, something that doesn't happen enough in this town." Accountable for what actions? Law demanded, his voice rising with genuine frustration. You haven't presented a single piece of credible evidence for any of these claims. You're not holding anyone accountable. You're just spreading malicious gossip for entertainment value. The host leaned forward aggressively, his body language becoming more confrontational. Evidence? You want evidence? How about the fact that 3 different people from your last film set reached out to our producers with stories about your behavior? How about the fact that your own agent tried to get us to avoid certain topics because they were worried about how you'd react? Law's eyes narrowed dangerously. My agent never contacted your show about avoiding topics. That's another lie, Jimmy. And if you really had 3 credible sources, you would have presented their claims properly, with context and the opportunity for response. Instead, you're using anonymous gossip to ambush a guest. Anonymous? Kimmel's voice took on a mocking tone. Oh, they're not anonymous to me. I have names, dates, specific incidents. But I guess you don't remember screaming at the catering staff because your coffee wasn't the right temperature, do you? The accusation was so absurd, so clearly fabricated, that several audience members actually laughed nervously, not because it was funny, but because of how obviously false it sounded. Law stared at Kimmel for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. Jimmy, I don't drink coffee. I never have. It's well documented in every interview I've ever done. It's mentioned in my rider for every production. I drink tea exclusively. The fact that you would make up such a specific, easily disprovable lie tells me everything I need to know about the credibility of your other sources. For the first time since the interview began, Kimmel looked genuinely rattled. The coffee detail was clearly something he had improvised, and Law's immediate factual rebuttal exposed it as the fabrication it was. But instead of backing down or apologizing, Kimmel doubled down even harder. Fine, tea then, whatever. The point is you have a pattern of treating people beneath you like garbage, and someone needed to call you out on it. If that someone happens to be me on my show, then so be it. Law stood up from his chair, his patience finally exhausted. Beneath me? Jimmy, I don't consider anyone beneath me. The only person in this room who seems to have a problem with treating people with basic respect is you. You've lied about me, insulted me, attacked my character, and now you're trying to paint me as some kind of elitist monster. All for what? A few cheap laughs from an audience that looks increasingly uncomfortable with what they're witnessing? The camera caught several audience members nodding in agreement with Law's assessment. The atmosphere in the studio had shifted completely, with many viewers now clearly sympathizing with the guest rather than the host. Kimmel seemed to sense this shift and became even more aggressive in response. Oh, please, spare me the victim act, Kimmel snarled. You came on this show knowing exactly what kind of show it is. Don't act surprised when you get treated like everyone else instead of being handed softball questions and fake compliments. Treated like everyone else? Law's voice was incredulous. Jimmy, do you ambush all your guests with false accusations and personal attacks? Because if you do, I can't imagine how you still have a show. Kimmel's face flushed red at Law's pointed question about his hosting methods. The studio had become a pressure cooker, and everyone could sense that something was about to explode. The host's carefully constructed facade was crumbling in real time, revealing something much uglier underneath. You know what your problem is, Jude? Kimmel said, his voice taking on a nasty edge that sent chills through the audience. Your problem is that you think being in a few superhero movies and period dramas makes you untouchable. Well, newsflash, this isn't England where people curtsy when you walk by. This is America, and in America we don't worship actors like they're gods. Law's eyes flashed with a combination of anger and disgust. Jimmy, this has nothing to do with worship or nationality. This is about basic human decency, something you seem to have forgotten in your quest for ratings. You're not some crusading journalist exposing corruption. You're a late-night host bullying a guest for entertainment. Bullying? Kimmel's voice cracked slightly. I'm the one being bullied here. You come on my show, sit in that chair, and act like you're too good to answer a few tough questions. Maybe if more hosts had the courage to ask celebrities real questions instead of kissing their asses, we'd have a more honest industry. The hypocrisy was staggering, and Law couldn't let it slide. Courage? Jimmy, there's nothing courageous about ambushing someone with lies. Real courage would be asking legitimate questions based on facts, not spreading gossip and hoping something sticks. What you're doing isn't brave, it's cowardly and desperate. Kimmel slammed his hand down on his desk, the sharp sound echoing through the now silent studio. Desperate? I'm desperate? You're the one whose last 3 movies bombed at the box office. You're the one who's been doing the same period piece garbage for years because you can't get cast in anything relevant. And you want to talk about desperate? The personal attack on Law's career was the final straw. The actor stood up fully from his chair, towering over the seated host with quiet dignity that made Kimmel's childish tantrum look even more pathetic by comparison. Jimmy, my career is not your concern, and frankly, given the quality of this interview, I'm not sure you're in any position to critique anyone else's professional choices. But what really disturbs me is how you seem to take pleasure in trying to tear people down. Is this what you tell your children you do for a living? That daddy makes money by humiliating guests on television? The mention of Kimmel's family clearly struck a nerve. His face contorted with rage, and when he spoke, all pretense of professionalism vanished entirely. Don't you dare bring my family into this, you pretentious British prick. You think you can come into my house, disrespect me, and then lecture me about my parenting? Who the hell do you think you are? The slur hung in the air like poison. Several audience members gasped audibly, and even the camera operators looked shocked at their host's language. Law's expression hardened into something cold and dangerous. I think I'm someone who expected to be treated with basic professional courtesy, Law said, his voice now ice-cold. Instead, I walked into an ambush, orchestrated by someone who seems to have serious personal issues that he's projecting onto his guests. Jimmy, I've been nothing but respectful to you despite your unprovoked attacks, and in return, you've shown your true character. Kimmel was beyond reason now, his anger consuming what little professionalism he had left. My true character? At least I don't hide behind a fake accent and pretend to be something I'm not. At least I don't think I'm better than everyone else because I went to some fancy British drama school. Fake accent? Law's eyebrows raised in genuine amazement. Jimmy, I'm British. This is how British people sound, and I've never claimed to be better than anyone. The only person in this room who seems obsessed with superiority and inferiority is you. The host was spiraling completely out of control now, his voice becoming shrill and desperate. Oh, spare me the innocent act. We both know you look down on American television, American audiences, American everything. You probably think this whole country is beneath you, don't you? Law shook his head slowly, his expression shifting from anger to something closer to pity. Jimmy, I have nothing but respect for American television, American audiences, and American culture. Some of my closest friends are American. My children are American citizens, and I've spent a significant portion of my career working in this country because I love it here. Your assumption says far more about your own insecurities than it does about my feelings toward America. But Kimmel was too far gone to hear reason. He stood up from behind his desk, pointing an accusatory finger at his guest. Insecurities? I'm not the one who can't handle a few tough questions without throwing a tantrum. I'm not the one who thinks he's too special to be held accountable for his actions. Accountable for what actions, Jimmy? Law's voice rose with exasperation. You still haven't presented a single credible piece of evidence for any of your accusations. You've made up stories, twisted facts, used ethnic slurs, and when called out on your lies, you've only gotten more abusive. If anyone here is throwing a tantrum, it's you. The truth of Law's words seemed to penetrate even Kimmel's rage-fueled haze. For a moment the host looked around the studio, seeming to notice, for the first time, the horrified expressions of his audience, his crew, his producers. But instead of backing down, he made one final desperate attempt to regain control. "You know what, Jude? I think we're done here. If you can't handle a real interview, if you're going to sit there and insult me on my own show, then maybe you should leave." Law straightened his jacket calmly, his dignity intact despite everything he had endured. "Jimmy, I didn't insult you. I simply defended myself against your unfounded attacks and pointed out the unprofessional nature of your conduct. But you're absolutely right about one thing. We are done here." As Law began to walk toward the edge of the stage, Kimmel made one last desperate grab for the moral high ground. "That's right. Walk away. Run back to your fancy trailer and your yes-men who tell you how wonderful you are. This is what happens when celebrities get challenged by real people." Law stopped and turned back, his expression calm, but his words cutting. "Jimmy, real people don't behave the way you've behaved tonight. Real people don't lie about their guests. Real people don't use ethnic slurs. And real people don't mistake cruelty for courage. What you've shown tonight isn't strength or authenticity. It's weakness disguised as aggression." With that final observation, Jude Law walked off the Jimmy Kimmel Live stage with his head held high, leaving behind a host whose mask had slipped completely, revealing the petty, insecure bully underneath. The audience sat in stunned silence, having witnessed not a comedy interview, but a character assassination that had backfired spectacularly on its perpetrator.